The sun is just starting to stretch its golden fingers across the kitchen table, and the smell of fresh coffee is the only thing keeping the world steady this morning. It's a quiet start to the day, isn't it? But you know, back in the 50s, quiet was a luxury we didn't always trust. We spent half our time looking at the blue sky and the other half wondering if something was going to fall out of it that didn't belong there. Today, I want to tell you about a December morning in 1955 that should have been a disaster, but ended up being a story we're still telling 70 years later. It's about a man, a wrong number, and a red phone that was never, ever supposed to ring. The scent of ozone and iron. If I close my eyes, I can still smell it, the way the air felt in those old electronics shops or the back of a radio station. That sharp, ozone scent of vacuum tubes heating up, the smell of warm dust on a metal chassis, and that heavy, bitter aroma of military-grade coffee that had been sitting on a burner since 4 in the morning. That's the smell of the Cold War, folks. It was the scent of people waiting for a sound they hoped they'd never hear. In 1955, at the Continental Air Defense Command, CONAD, in Colorado Springs, a man named Colonel Harry Shoup was sitting in a room that felt like the center of a spiderweb. This wasn't some cozy office. It was a fortress. Huge maps on the walls, men with headsets, and a red phone on Shoup's desk. That phone was a direct line from the 4-star general at the Pentagon. It only had one job, to announce that the Soviet bombers were coming over the North Pole. Harry Shoup was a iron pants kind of colonel. He didn't smile much. He didn't tolerate nonsense. And he treated that red phone like a loaded gun. Then, right in the middle of the pre-Christmas rush, the red phone rang. The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop on the concrete floor. Shoup grabbed the receiver, his heart probably thumping against his ribs like a trapped bird, and he barked his name into the mouthpiece. He was ready for the end of the world. And instead of a general's voice, he heard a tiny, hesitant whisper. "Are you really Santa Claus?" The truth behind the legend. Now, you read the stories today and they make Harry out to be a jolly fellow from the start. But remember when I told you he was a career soldier? His first reaction wasn't a ho, ho, ho. He was furious. He thought it was a prank, a cruel, dangerous joke played by someone who had found the secret number to the nation's defense hub. He barked back, asking who was on the line and what they thought they were doing. But then he heard the girl on the other end start to cry. It turns out a local Sears Roebuck store had printed a flyer, those cheap paper handouts they'd stuff in your mailbox or leave on your windshield, inviting kids to call Santa. But the printer had slipped up. They'd swapped 2 digits, and instead of a store clerk in a fake beard, the children of Colorado were calling the man in charge of the nuclear umbrella. Harry Shoup looked at the red phone, then he looked at his men, serious, tired men who spent their lives staring at green radar blips, waiting for death. And something in him shifted. He didn't hang up. He cleared his throat, softened his voice, and told that little girl, "Yes, I am, but I'm a bit busy at the moment, so you'll have to be extra good this year." He didn't stop there. He called over his radar officer and gave an order that sounds like a movie script today, but it was real. He told them to find the big man on the sled on their screens. He turned the world's most sophisticated killing machine into a tracking station for a sleigh and 8 reindeer. Tracking the glowing nose. By the time I was a young man, this Santa tracker thing had grown legs of its own. It became a piece of American folklore. But it started with those men in that dark room drinking their burnt coffee and playing along with 1,000 kids. I remember reading in the papers, the real ones, with ink that stayed on your fingers, how the military started taking it seriously. They'd release these official statements about the Santa 1 flight plan. They talked about using their DEW line, the distant early warning system, to pick up the thermal signature of Rudolph's nose. You see, those satellites were designed to catch the white-hot flash of a Russian ICBM launch. But the pilots and the technicians, they'd tell us with perfectly straight faces that Rudolph's nose gave off an infrared signal that was just as bright. They even claimed that Canadian CF-18 fighter jets would scramble out of Bagotville to meet him at the border. The pilots would pull up alongside the sleigh, tip their wings in a salute, and the big man would wave back before disappearing into the clouds. It sounds like a tall tale, doesn't it? But back then, when we lived under the shadow of the big one, we needed that tale. We needed to know that the people with their fingers on the buttons still knew how to laugh. We'll talk about Apollo 11 and the men who actually went up into that black sky soon enough. That's a different kind of miracle for a different day. But for now, just think about the fact that even in the darkest times of the Cold War, a tiny mistake in a newspaper was able to make an entire army play hide and seek with a magician. So tonight, when you're done listening, please drop down to the comments and tell me what was the best thing you ever heard on the radio or saw on a screen that made you believe in something impossible. I'll be sitting right here, leaning back in this old chair, reading every single one. Brain Prime, a little test to keep you sharp. Let's see if you were paying attention to the details, folks, or if you were just dreaming of sugar plums. In what year did the red phone at Conad ring with that first child's call? What was the name of the store that printed the wrong phone number in their flyer? What was the last name of the Santa colonel who answered the call? See, sharp as a tack, you know. Even if you missed one, it doesn't matter much. The important thing is the story itself. The way a mistake can turn into a miracle if the right person picks up the phone. Next time, folks, I want to talk about those beautiful, heavy cast iron skillets. I'll tell you why you should never, ever let a drop of soap touch them, and why the best secrets of the family were always seasoned right into the metal. Until then, keep your eyes on the stars, be kind to the children, and God bless.